Well. Look who's decided to return to Dungeon Quest. Yep, it's me. The one who has completed Volcanic Chambers with Orbital Outpost gear, and completed Aquatic Temple with Volcanic Chambers gear. Now, I promised this video about 2 months ago, but up until now, I actually haven't been able to beat it, so yeah, here it is. So as you probably might have read from the title, yes, I am doing this challenge. So I am going to be beating Northern Lands Insane using Enchanted Forest items with no enhanced inner focus, or heck even regular inner focus, or any speed spells at all. Now, you might be thinking, dude, this is impossible, don't you think? Well, you can't stop me from doing that. You know this guy? Sure, he may be regarded as one of the best soloists in this game, but no more. I am here to claim that spot. If you can't do this challenge, you can't be the king of Dungeon Quest at all. Okay, that's kind of a lie, but yeah, there you go. So as usual, I will be showing my loadouts I will be using for this run, and at the end I will show my death scenes, and I will show an in-depth analysis on what steps I took for every situation. Alright, let's get started. So the gear I'm using is a purple Elden Bark Mage Helmet with 3.6 million spell power, and an Elden Bark Mage Armor with 3.69 million spell power. And I am using an Elden Bark Greatstaff with 36 million spell power. And for my skill points, I am using 15 stamina and 164 spell power. So my health is quite low here, but as you can see, we can deal about 200 trillion maximum, or minimum, but this alone should be enough for me to beat Northern Lands alone, because with inner focus, you need to deal at least 382 trillion to beat Northern Lands at all. So with these values, I should be able to kill the minions in 4 shots, or 4 cycles of a spell, but you know what I mean. As for spells, I will be using Chain or Lightning Burst and Agony Orbs. Now, it is well aware that Mage isn't as good in Enchanted Forest because the spells are slow to use, and one of the spells actually has less range than the warrior ones. But, believe it or not, I played as a mage for the entirety of Enchanted Forest's lifespan, and honestly, I still prefer mage despite all the setbacks it has. So, what are you gonna do? So, that out of the way, let's get into our round. first stage is actually pretty easy, mind you. Now, an important thing to note about this whole round, the Northern Warriors are always faster than you, but how they attack is unlike any other enemy in below volcanic chambers. But how they would attack is they would stop in front of you and then they would do a triple slash, while the last one being a little projectile that they shoot. Now, this is actually possible to beat without its inner focus and inner rage because the Northern Warriors hitbox are actually dodgeable without inner focus, and it's not as hard as you think it would be, but it had said that actually has gotten me killed in some areas because if you pair them with the other two enemies, the Northern Spearman and the Northern Mage, it actually gets harder, and you really have to time when you get it to attack because there's no way you can avoid it. Now, this is actually what is required to beat this dungeon without inner focus because you need to decide when to get the Northern Warriors to attack so you can dodge the other two minions. And yeah, this first stage is pretty easy. I've been doing it for a while now, so yeah, there you go. I know someone's gonna at least question me why I used the glitch for the first boss, and believe it or not, if it was not for the first boss jumping on top of you, then I would not have used this. The reason for that is this big red circle that he spawns on top of you, yeah, that is not dodgeable without a speed spell. So that is why I go out of the arena to force them off the rock, because it's not because I'm a noob at this, it's because it's undodgeable without a speed spell. Now, you could always argue that I could force them to spawn on top of me and then I just run out of the circle, all to at least to make it possible and a little bit more difficult, but I've tried that and it doesn't work. So yeah, that's why I had to use this. So you might have seen in some areas that I had to stay out of the arena longer. Like here, if I just went in the arena, I would have been dead because these cyclones that go around the arena, they spawn in random places, and sometimes they can spawn behind you, which gets you killed. So you kind of got to avoid those and have good RNG. So yeah, there's that. So here I actually have no clue how I survived that, but I actually got a big boost since I survived that. Now, the only bad thing is one of the Northern Warriors survived on one tap, so I had to guide him away, okay? Or at least make him not get in the way of me attracting the other group. So, a big part of this whole challenge is you cannot die more than twice. Nice, because otherwise you're not going to have enough time to beat the Odin. And this is easier said than done because I tried this with 440 million HP, but one, I did not deal enough damage to beat the dungeon, and two, I just kept dying from the minions because even though I take one or two hits, I always end up taking a third if I do get hit at all. So I just figured it would only be sufficient if I survived one hit from absolutely everything, except for boss strong attacks. But yeah, that's this part. So a big part about the second boss is where the lasers spawn in the arena. So the lasers are faster than you, even with inner focus. It's only because you can move left or right much faster than they can get to you. So that is why they don't seem that fast. But when you're really using no inner, you really have to zoom out to see where they spawn so you know where to move ahead of time. Now, I know a lot of people consider Bob pretty difficult, but I actually don't think he's that hard. It's just kind of RNG dependent. Because what's RNG about this guy is where the lasers spawn and what color the orb he spawns is. So, believe it or not, when he does that little chain where it spawns a circle and then it just keeps going until the end, and that's not RNG, and that's actually an important factor you have to take into account. So after he spawns the orb and spawns the little sunshine pattern, it's actually always in a consistent spot, dependent on where he is facing. So if he faces directly towards you and you don't move at all, it will always spawn a line in front of him, which will always hit you. So regardless of where you're standing, and when he uses that attack, that's actually setting up an outline of when he does that little sunshine pattern, so you can take that into account and plan accordingly. Because the last thing you'd want is you running over to one of the crystals and then it's spawning a line directly in front of you, which gets you killed. Because I'm sure many people noticed this already, but the sunshine actually spawns twice at the same time, dealing 2 times damage. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you can only take 1 hit. And another big factor about this boss is the orbs. Now, the orbs are actually a tiny bit slower than you, which you probably might not have noticed, but you actually need to get these to despawn, because you can't just run around the whole arena using an orb, because you're likely going to die from a laser or any other orbs. So I got lucky in this round and he spawned a lot of yellow and red orbs, but if he spawns a green orb, you can try to wait for your spell to cool down and then attack him and then go defuse the orb, or you can just go defuse it right away, but one of them takes more time than the other. So yeah, that's the second boss. So believe it or not, the stages after the second boss are actually the hardest minion stages, at least if you're not using inner focus. So as you saw here, I tried to attack the mages and then group them all up, and this is to save as much time as possible. Now, you could always just run to the other group and attack them all at the same time to try to save even more time, but that is actually even harder because there was only like 2 or 3 instances of my whole runs that have actually successfully killed all 3 groups of minions at the same time. So instead of losing like 20 seconds for a death, I decided just to kill only the first 2 groups and then go over to the last group, because this ensures that I do not die, which, although maybe a little bit slower than if I did not die, I would not take that chance because I haven't died up to this point. So in this stage, I like to attack the left group first and get their attention, and then I would run over to the other group on the right, and then attack them all at the same time. Now, you could try to connect the groups, as I said before, but you can't really do that for this stage because you will get undodgeable scenarios, which ends up in you dying and losing about like 15 seconds. So I did the same approach. I killed the first 2 groups first and then go to the last one, but in case as you saw later on the stage, I ended up dying because I made a mistake. So with the northern mages, if you're far enough away, you can run out of their hitbox with no inner. But if you're too close to them, then you have to try to stay in between the lines, and if that's not possible, you're forced to take a hit. Now, if you're forced to take a hit from anything, it's best to try to only get hit once rather than getting hit a whole bunch of times, because as this is pretty difficult, I'll say. But usually how most people take this is if you're in an undodgeable scenario, you try to get out of it somehow, and then you end up taking like 3 or 4 hits or something like that, and then you die. And this is hard to adapt to, I'll admit, but if you take only 1 hit opposed to like 1,000 other hits, then that's probably your best case scenario. And for the last group in the back, right there, yeah, you see that? Uh, I try to use lightning burst to attack them because lightning burst actually has a slightly shorter cooldown than agony orbs because um, if you're mage, you might have noticed this or you haven't. I'd imagine you have not, but most of the mage spells actually don't start the cooldown straight away. So, for an example, with Agony Orbs, its cooldown is actually 7 seconds because it takes 1 second to finish attacking the spell. So then, and it would when you use the spell, it would show 6 seconds for about a second, and then it would start counting down. Lightning Burst and most of the warrior spells do not have that, so warrior actually kind of has an advantage here because both of the warrior spells start to cool down immediately, and you can use both at the same time. And another benefit, is warrior actually has more range than mage in an enchanted forest. So yeah, for all your warriors, you get a little bonus, maybe. So after killing the last group here, I reset to spawn on top of the stairs because, believe it or not, if you run up the stairs, it's gonna take you like 30 seconds without enter. So I just reset here to give myself a little time bonus because that is actually the only way I would have been able to get up there in time without, or with like 1 or 2 deaths. And for the group afterwards, Hurts, I did not connect them again, and it's kind of for the same reason. You can't do that because otherwise you just die. And there was only like 2 or 3 instances where I actually did successfully connect them. And you'll see later that I made a mistake, and I died again, but I somehow was lucky enough to beat the dungeon with 1 minute and 20 seconds left because I thought you needed 2 minutes to kill the Odin, but this is a lot faster than I anticipated. So there you go.